Hey everybody, it's Richard Harris. Welcome to the Sales Development Summit of 2017, where we're going to talk about different ways to outperform your peers and hit your numbers. I am your host, Richard Harris from the Harris Consulting Group, and of course, Sales Hacker for those of you who know me. Thank you for joining us on this session. We are very excited. Today we are going to be talking about the perfect handoff, because these things matter. And let's talk about why we're going to talk about the perfect handoff first. The reason we want to do this, we want to talk about creating the right sales culture and respect of accountability between the different team members on the sales team, whether that's SDRs to AEs, AEs to customer success back to the sales team, management of sales to marketing. We always want to create that right sales culture of respect and accountability. Obviously, one of the things that we are always working on is try to improve and increase our show-up rates to sales calls. If you can directly affect that show-up rate, that's going to give you more solid at-bats. And with more at-bats, you got more shots to hit base singles, hit doubles, triples, and even the home run. We also want to improve the quality of our pipeline. We're going to talk today through handoffs how you can make that happen. And of course, we also want to talk about pipeline growth. At a super high level, nothing else matters more than pipeline growth, well, with the exception of more revenue. We want more revenue and fewer mistakes. So let's get started. There are two kinds of gaps that we see a lot in sales. One is a skills gap. The other is a process gap. And today we're going to talk about a combination of the two. Very specifically, we're going to talk about the gaps between these handoffs, but from SDR to AE, from AE to customer success, and from customer success back to AE, perhaps on the upsell or the cross-sell. Of course, these handoffs can happen anywhere. They don't just have to be in the sales organization. It can be between sales and marketing. It could be from demand gen to lead gen. It could be from engineering to customer. So making sure you understand and define a smart process and then execute on that process is going to be very, very important. A good friend of mine wrote a book called Addicted to the Process, Scott Leese. If you haven't had a chance to read it, I would encourage you to do so. Very, very importantly right now, we're going to talk about how to do an email handoff or a live in-person meeting handoff. And traditionally what I'm talking about is between the SDR, the person who set the appointment, and the AE. So here I've defined a process that I follow and a methodology that I follow. And I want to make sure that everybody decides and understands that your process is going to be different. It's going to be real different if you're teaching Pee-wee football how to do a handoff than if you're teaching professionals how to do that. So let's take a look real quick. Step one of a handoff. We talk about this all the time. Do I send a calendar invite? Well, of course you send a calendar invite. Here are some very specific things that I encourage people to do. One, be sure that you include specifics in the subject line. You can see up at the top where I have that. Sales Hacker Roots Rated, first discussion. I always like to put the word first discussion because it lets people know what's going on. Also, when it comes to second and third discussions, it puts an onus of accountability on them to realize that, oh yeah, this is a second or third discussion. I need to make sure that I show up for this one. The where line, you can see that in the middle. Always indicate who is calling who. Obviously, if you have a Zoom meeting conference line or some other conference line you're using, that will work as well. But if you're calling direct, please be sure to say who will be calling who. Now the third part, the agenda. People ask about this all the time. Should we put the agenda in the body of an email invite? Well, I'm not opposed to doing it, but here's the very, very, really important thing we all know. It's never, ever, ever going to get read. First of all, it's rarely read when you send the invitation over because most people just accept it because we just talked about sending an invite. And secondly, they're never going to go back and read it until maybe 10 minutes before when the pop-up comes. And if that happens, then that's sort of what you're looking at, and there's no reason to even have it in there. Now, by default, I would encourage everybody to put it in there because it's very important, and there are those people who do like to look at the agendas, and they like them to be in the calendar invite. So I'm not opposed to that. Next thing, step two. You've got to send an email to the customer. This is the SDR sending an email, even though you just sent the calendar invite. Yes, you want to. You want to make sure that they have an invitation in their inbox and then an email. That helps confirm and remind them that this meeting is going to occur. Additionally, what you want to do is make sure that subject line We'll say something like pre-meeting intro, company X to AE name. If you're going to hand it off to the AE, let them know what it is. Let them know who that person is. And then keep it very simple. Hey, thanks for letting us get on your calendar. Please meet so-and-so who's going to be speaking with you at such and such a time. Below, you'll find the specific items you mentioned you would like to discuss. And you bullet no more than 2 or 3 bullet items. Okay? If there's something else you want to add, please let us know. We're happy to adjust. Moving forward, you're welcome to contact me or blank with any additional questions. Now, this is the template I put together. Some organizations actually want the SDR to own making sure that that meeting occurs. So if that's the case, then I would only say, moving forward, please contact me if you need to reschedule. And yes, it's okay to say that in an email because we know what's going to happen in some cases. So you might as well be prepared for it. So this is what that email looks like. It goes out to the prospect and it goes out to the AE. You should include anybody who's going to be in that meeting. Now here's the clincher. To make this handoff super smooth, there's a third step, and I don't see a lot of companies doing this. The AE should obviously be replying to this same email. And it says, hey, thanks SDR, BCC, if that's how your culture operates. From there, you say, great to connect with you. I look forward to speaking with you next week. If you have any additional questions, please let me know. Look, this email from the AE all the way back to the prospect and the SDR ensures a smooth handoff. It sends 2 or 3 messages to your prospect that actually says, hey, not only are we going to take care of you and provide the solution you want, but we're going to give you the white glove treatment as a customer before you even become a customer. It makes sure there are no loose ends. It helps reconfirm the commitment not only from your organization, but also from that prospect to show back up for that meeting and come through and make sure that your show-up rates stay high. This is how you win. This is how you become a champion. So that is the third step in how you do a handoff from the SDR to the AE. Let's move forward to the next one. Live meeting handoffs, right? SDR to AE. I love it when SDRs are allowed to attend those first meetings with AEs. The meeting is fantastic. It's a great educational opportunity. It can actually help the AE because they've got another set of ears who can be listening for things that maybe the AE can't focus on because they're so busy running a demo or a PowerPoint or leading the conversation. Look, 2 heads are better than 1. We know that. So why not take advantage of that? Now, this is a fun part for SDRs, particularly in career development. They love to be a part of this. So many times I talk to people and the SDRs get so frustrated because, well, after I throw it over the fence, I don't know what happens. Well, here's a great way to learn what happens and a great way for you to grow your skill set and a great way for the AE to have some backup behind them in case they need it. Now, I know there's some AEs who are like, I don't want SDRs on my calls. Well, that's a cultural and a management issue. I don't think that should be addressed here today. But if we got AEs who are saying that, then I think you've got a much bigger problem with that AE. So let's talk about how this looks. Live meeting. This could be in a conference call. This could even be live if you're all in the same conference room. So the live handoff process is 4 steps. And you'll notice that the first 3 steps are what we just talked about. The SDR is going to send a calendar invite. The SDR is going to send an email with an introduction. The AE is going to reply saying, hey, I look forward to meeting with you or speaking with you next week. Now here's what happens when that meeting starts. First of all, let's assume it's a conference call for this example. Look, the SDR needs to implement a respect contract. They want to be the people who are making sure who's on the line. Yes, so-and-so's on the line. Great. Okay, we're still waiting for so-and-so. We're still waiting for so-and-so. Let them be that traffic cop at the beginning of the meeting so the AE can just sort of calm themselves down. Look, we all get excited as salespeople when we get on a sales call, but it's also nice to have a moment of just breathe, take a breath. So AEs, this is a really great thing for you if you're watching this or listening to this session. It gives you a moment of clarity. Let you pull up that website one more time, pull up one more piece of paper, whatever it is that you need to do. SDRs can go through some basic introductions. Hey, everybody, thanks for joining us. I'm just going to handle things for a moment before I hand the meeting over to Sarah. Hey, just for time, is everybody still good for 30 minutes? Are there hard stops we need to be aware of? Great. Here's who is in the room. For the sake of everyone's time, since there's only 3 or 4 of us, is it okay if we skip introductions? Now, again, you could have your SDRs decide to do introductions. That's an internal decision for your organization. SDR could say, listen, everybody, the purpose of this call is for us to just walk you through some of the things we talked about from my initial conversation, give you guys a little bit more of a understanding, and then decide if how we're going to move forward from there, right? So at this point, I'd like to take a moment. I'm going to transition this over to Sarah. Sarah, I'm going to sit back and be on hold. If you need me for anything, Sarah, let me know. And at that point, Sarah's going to take over and crush it, right? That's our goal. We want her to crush it. So here are the benefits, right? Let's talk about this live meeting handoff. One, we're going to build greater rapport and trust through a more professional buyer experience. So many times your prospects will buy from you, not just because of what you do, but how you do it. When you fill in those gaps that we talked about, both the skills gaps and the process gaps, it makes for a much smoother transition. Listen, we've all checked into different kinds of hotels. There's a different experience when you check in to a Courtyard Marriott than what you might get at the Four Seasons, right? It's not bad. There's nothing wrong with the Courtyard Marriott. But you actually are in control of providing that experience to your customer. So why not treat them like they're going, to the best hotel in the world? Next thing, greater teamwork between the SDR and AE on account territory planning. As this evolves, the SDR and AE are going to become more cohesive, more aligned, and more trusting of each other, and they're going to make for a much greater sales organization internally. You're going to improve accountability, right? From the SDR to the AE. You're going to be able to remove that blame factory. The SDR can't say, look, I don't know why that meeting didn't happen, and the AE can't really say, well, that meeting was terrible because if there are a couple of bad meetings set by the SDR and AE, the AE needs to give that feedback to the SDR so they can keep learning. And any AE who doesn't do that, well, you're missing a tremendous opportunity to help yourself. That's what we're talking about. And of course, this should improve the long-term pipeline. Now, here's the thing. You've got to be careful, right? Sometimes an AE will treat the SDR like a secretary. I'm sorry, AEs, that is not their job. It is not their job to put all the notes in the CRM. There's nothing wrong with an SDR taking notes and providing them to you, but it's not their job to fill out the CRM, particularly because you're the one who needs to pay attention. What happens if the SDR does actually miss something? You can't blame them. You're the AE. You're the one who's accountable for that account after the handoff. But why not find a way to work together as a team? That will make it much better all the way around. So, AE complains that they don't like their SDRs on sales calls. Again, I've already addressed this. This is a management issue. If you've got AEs who expect your SDR to put notes in the system and don't want SDRs on their call, well, then I think you've got a cultural issue with this particular AE. And I know there are lone wolves out there who like to operate that way. I have no problem with the lone wolves. If they're performing, then it's up to you as a manager to decide how to do that. However, if they're not performing, then it just becomes one more thing that comes out of their excuse factor. So finally, again, let's review these things. What are the benefits of this proper handoff? It's going to help create the right sales culture of respect and accountability. It's going to improve and increase the show-up rate. It's going to improve your pipeline quality, your pipeline growth, and hopefully it's going to give you fewer mistakes and a more accurate pipeline. So here's some takeaways. 1, please define your process on paper before you actually implement. 2, make sure that there's a strong SLA between the departments, not just the reps. It's through the departments, whether it's the head of the SDR department and the head of the sales department, whether it's the head of marketing or the head of sales. Sometimes SDRs are now falling under the marketing world, which is not a bad thing in my opinion. But again, this must be agreed to and defined by management, but definitely get the reps' input. Make sure they're involved in this process. Don't just roll out a process for the sake of a process. Take in their feedback. They have great information, whether they're SDRs or AEs, but ultimately it is a management decision. You're going to need to iterate when necessary. There are always things that happen and change over time. Remember, any process you create is ultimately just a hypothesis, and now you're trying to refine that hypothesis through live action and real data. Be sure that you define each of the handoffs. Each one's going to be slightly different. Make sure you understand, are they going to be live calls? Are they going to be done through email? Are they going to be done through some kind of chat room? How is that going to happen? And you need to lay that process all out on paper. So Thank you there very much for paying attention and listening to the process. If you want to get a hold of me, here's my contact information. You're always welcome to tweet at me. You're always welcome to connect on LinkedIn, or just send me an email, or even do something traditional, old school. Pick up the phone. I usually answer it. Anyway, we hope you have a great sales summit, and thanks again. Have a great day. Bye-bye.